Hello, and welcome. You've arrived at the threshold of a garden, a very special garden that exists at the intersection of science and sleep, of beauty and rest, of knowing and dreaming. We're going to explore together why flowers calm the human brain, why these delicate blooms have such profound power over your nervous system, why simply being near them, or even thinking about them, can shift something deep inside you toward peace. We'll walk together through a garden that grows quieter and more dreamlike as we go deeper into it, where each scientific truth about flowers becomes a petal, each insight a leaf, each discovery a bloom opening in the darkness. You don't need to remember anything you hear tonight. You don't need to stay awake to catch every word. In fact, the opposite is true. This is a journey designed to carry you gently from wakefulness into sleep, from the bright garden of consciousness into the night garden of dreams. The facts about flowers that you'll hear, and there are many, woven throughout like threads in a tapestry, are real. They come from neuroscience, from botany, from chemistry and physics and evolutionary biology. They explain why your amygdala quiets when you see flower colors, why certain scents trigger neurotransmitter release, why the simple presence of blooms can lower your cortisol levels and slow your racing thoughts. But these facts are also poetry. They're also invitations. They're also permissions to rest. Because here's what science tells us about flowers and the brain. Flowers are nature's original anxiety medicine, evolved over 130 million years to communicate safety, beauty, abundance, and the continuation of life. When your ancestors walked through landscapes full of blooms, their nervous systems learned to associate flowers with good things, with food to come, with seasons of plenty, with the resilience of life itself. That ancient learning lives in you still. It lives in your DNA, in the structure of your visual cortex, in the pathways that connect your olfactory bulb directly to your emotional centers. You are built to respond to flowers. Your brain is wired to find them calming. And tonight, we're going to explore why, in intricate and beautiful detail, letting each explanation settle over you like dew settling on petals, like darkness settling over a meadow, like sleep settling into your body. So find a comfortable position now. Let your body be fully supported. You might be in bed, ready for the night's sleep, or you might be resting during the day, stealing time for restoration. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, give yourself permission to be exactly where you are. Feel the weight of your body against whatever surface holds you. Feel gravity doing its gentle work, pulling you down, grounding you, relieving you of the need to hold yourself up. Let yourself be held. Notice your breathing, but don't change it. Just observe the natural rhythm, air flowing in, air flowing out, like tides, like the opening and closing of flower petals in response to light and darkness. Let your eyes close now, if they haven't already. Behind your closed eyelids, imagine a garden. Don't work hard at this, just let whatever garden wants to appear arise naturally. Maybe it's a garden you've visited in life, or one you've seen in pictures, or one that exists only in your imagination. It doesn't matter. All gardens are real in the landscape of the mind. See the flowers there again, without effort, without forcing detail. Maybe there are roses, their layered petals holding the last light of day. Maybe lavender, purple spires swaying slightly in a breeze you can almost feel. Maybe wildflowers, scattered like stars across a meadow, their names unknown but their beauty certain. This is where we'll begin, in this garden of your mind's making, and from here we'll journey deeper and deeper, through the science of how flowers affect your brain, through their colors and scents and shapes, through their ancient history and their invisible molecular nature, through metaphors and facts that dissolve into each other until you can't tell where the flower ends and your own consciousness begins. The journey is long, hours long, because sleep comes slowly, naturally, in its own time. We're not rushing toward unconsciousness. We're allowing it to arrive the way night arrives, gradually, beautifully, inevitably. Some of what you hear will be fascinating, capturing your attention even as it soothes you. Some of it will wash over you like water, registered but not grasped, words becoming sounds becoming silence. Both responses are perfect. This journey works whether you're listening actively or drifting in and out of awareness. The facts about flowers are your companions on this journey, but the destination is simple: rest. Deep, restorative, healing rest. The kind of sleep that flowers themselves seem to model, closing their petals as darkness falls, trusting in the return of light, surrendering to natural rhythms without resistance or anxiety. You're safe here in this garden. Nothing is asked of you. Nothing needs to be accomplished. There are no wrong ways to listen, no ways to fail at this. Even if your mind wanders, even if you find yourself thinking about other things, that's fine. Let your attention move where it wants to move. The garden will still be here. The flowers will still be sharing their secrets. As we move forward, you'll hear about neurotransmitters and amygdalas, about anthocyanins and photosynthesis, about evolution and quantum mechanics. But underneath all the scientific language is a simpler truth: flowers are beautiful, and beauty heals. Flowers are calm, and calm is contagious. Flowers bloom and fade and bloom again, and so do you. So let yourself settle now, like a seed settling into soil, like roots spreading down into darkness, like a bud preparing for the long, slow unfurling that will, in time, become a bloom. The garden awaits. The flowers are ready to share why they calm you. And you are ready to rest. Let us begin in a quiet garden at dusk, where the last golden rays of sunlight filter through petals of countless colors. Here, in this peaceful sanctuary, we'll discover why flowers have held such power over the human mind for millennia, why their very presence seems to soften the sharp edges of our thoughts and invite our racing hearts to slow. The story starts not in the garden, but in your brain, in a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. This is your emotional center, the part of you that processes fear, stress, and anxiety. When you encounter flowers, something remarkable happens. Research has shown that viewing flowers triggers a measurable decrease in activity within the amygdala. It's as though the flowers themselves carry a message written in a language older than words, one that tells your nervous system, you are safe here. This calming effect begins the moment your eyes register floral colors. The human eye can distinguish more variations of green than any other color, a remnant of our evolutionary past when identifying plants meant survival. But flowers speak to us in a different vocabulary. The soft pinks, gentle lavenders, warm yellows, and pure whites that characterize many blooms occupy wavelengths of light that require less visual processing effort. Unlike the harsh blues of digital screens or the intense reds that signal danger, pastel floral hues settle gently on the retina, creating minimal strain on the optical nerve. When these soothing colors reach your brain's visual cortex, they trigger the release of dopamine, that neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. But flowers don't flood your system with dopamine the way artificial stimuli might. Instead, they provide a gentle, sustained release, like a slow drip of contentment that washes through your neural pathways. This is why a bouquet on your desk can lift your mood throughout the day without the crash that follows more intense pleasures. The shape of flowers also plays a role in their calming effect. Many blooms follow mathematical patterns found throughout nature, particularly the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio. When you look at a sunflower's spiral seed arrangement, or the unfurling petals of a rose, your brain recognizes these proportions as fundamentally harmonious. The visual cortex processes these natural patterns with remarkable efficiency, creating a sense of aesthetic satisfaction that researchers call processing fluency. Your brain, quite simply, likes what it can easily understand, and flowers present themselves in nature's most elegant mathematical language. Consider the softness of petals. When you touch a rose petal or brush your fingers against velvet-soft pansies, you're activating thousands of gentle pressure receptors in your skin. These receptors send signals through your peripheral nervous system to your brain's somatosensory cortex. But the delicate touch required to appreciate a flower's texture also activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for rest and digestion, the counterbalance to your fight or flight response. This is the same mechanism that makes soft blankets and gentle stroking so soothing. Flowers invite the gentlest touch, and in doing so, they coax your entire nervous system toward a state of relaxation. The fragrance of flowers opens yet another pathway to calm. Your olfactory system, the sense of smell, is the only one of your 5 senses with a direct highway to your limbic system, which includes both the amygdala and the hippocampus, your memory center. When you inhale the scent of lavender, jasmine, or rose, aromatic molecules drift up through your nasal passages and bind to receptors in your olfactory epithelium. These receptors send signals that bypass your rational, thinking brain entirely and speak directly to your emotional centers. Lavender, perhaps the most studied of all calming florals, contains compounds called linalool and linylyl acetate. When you breathe in lavender's distinctive scent, these molecules don't just smell pleasant. They actually bind to GABA receptors in your brain. GABA, or gamma-aminobutyric acid, is your brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It slows down neural activity, quiets racing thoughts, and creates the neurochemical conditions for sleep. Pharmaceutical sleep aids often work by enhancing GABA activity, but lavender offers a gentler, more natural pathway to the same destination. Rose fragrance works through a different mechanism. The aromatic compounds in roses, particularly a molecule called rose oxide, have been shown to reduce cortisol levels in the bloodstream. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone, released by your adrenal glands when you're under pressure. Chronic elevation of cortisol disrupts sleep, impairs memory, and keeps your body in a state of constant alertness. When you inhale rose scent, your hypothalamus signals your pituitary gland, which in turn tells your adrenal glands to ease their cortisol production. The result is a measurable decrease in physiological stress, a quieting of your body's alarm system. Jasmine, with its sweet, heady fragrance, has been found to improve sleep quality as effectively as some conventional sleep medications in certain studies. The scent of jasmine appears to work on the same neurotransmitter systems as barbiturates, the class of drugs once commonly prescribed for sleep, but without any side effects or risk of dependency. When you drift off to sleep surrounded by jasmine fragrance, you're likely to spend more time in deep, restorative sleep stages and wake feeling more refreshed. But the calming power of flowers extends beyond their individual chemical compounds. There's something profound about their very existence, their life cycle, that speaks to a deep part of human consciousness. Flowers are ephemeral. A cherry blossom may last only days, a morning glory opens and closes within hours. This transience, far from being sad, actually contributes to their calming effect. When you observe a flower, you're witnessing a moment of perfect beauty that will not last, and this awareness gently guides your mind toward present moment attention, the very foundation of mindfulness. Neuroscientists have discovered that when people practice present moment awareness, looking at something beautiful without judgment or analysis, simply appreciating what is, their default mode network quiets down. This network, active when your mind wanders and worries, shows decreased activity during flower contemplation. At the same time, your anterior cingulate cortex, involved in attention regulation, shows increased activity. In other words, flowers naturally guide you toward a meditative state. The complexity of a flower also invites this meditative attention. Consider a single bloom, perhaps a peony with its hundreds of ruffled petals, or an iris with its intricate falls and standards. Your eyes can travel across these natural sculptures for minutes without exhausting their interest. This gentle engagement keeps your attention anchored, preventing it from drifting toward anxious thoughts or worries. It's a form of natural attention restoration, described by environmental psychologists as the kind of effortless attention that actually replenishes your cognitive resources rather than depleting them. Evolutionary psychologists suggest that our love of flowers may be hardwired into our biology. For hundreds of thousands of years, flowers signaled to our ancestors the presence of future food. Blossoms meant fruit would follow, and fruit meant survival. This association became embedded in our neural architecture. When we see flowers, even though we no longer depend on wild plants for sustenance, our brains still register them as signs of abundance, safety, and the continuation of life. This deep recognition triggers a relaxation response, a sense that all is well, that there will be enough. The colors of flowers also communicate seasonal information that helps regulate our circadian rhythms. Spring flowers in shades of yellow and white mirror the lengthening daylight, while late summer blooms in deep purples and golds echo the changing light as days grow shorter. When you surround yourself with seasonal flowers, you're reinforcing your body's natural connection to the cycle of the year, helping to regulate melatonin production and maintain healthy sleep-wake patterns. Water plays a fascinating role in flowers' calming effects too. When flowers are freshly cut and placed in water, they release moisture into the air through a process called transpiration. This increases the humidity in your environment, which has several benefits for relaxation and sleep. Slightly humid air keeps your respiratory passages moist, preventing the irritation that can disrupt sleep. It also helps maintain skin hydration, reducing the dry, uncomfortable feeling that can interfere with falling asleep. The gentle sound of water being drawn up through flower stems, though imperceptible to our conscious hearing, may even register as a subtle white noise that masks more disruptive sounds. The act of arranging flowers itself has therapeutic properties. When you handle flowers, choosing which ones to place where, trimming stems, removing leaves, you're engaging in what psychologists call a flow activity, a task that requires just enough concentration to occupy your conscious mind without overwhelming it. Flow activities are deeply restorative because they silence your inner critic and your anxious narrator, those voices that often intrude when you're trying to rest. Your hands know what to do with flowers. The task is intuitive, almost primal, and in performing it, you achieve a state of relaxed focus that lingers long after the flowers are arranged. There's also evidence that flowers influence our social emotions in ways that promote calm. Studies have shown that people who receive flowers experience an immediate increase in happiness that lasts for days. But more than that, they report feeling more connected to others, more grateful, and more at peace with their lives. These feelings of social connection and gratitude activate your prefrontal cortex, the most evolutionarily recent part of your brain, responsible for higher reasoning and emotional regulation. When this region is active and healthy, it can better manage the more primitive stress responses from your amygdala, creating a top-down calming effect. The symmetry found in many flowers also plays a role in their calming influence. Bilateral symmetry, like that found in orchids or snapdragons, is processed particularly efficiently by the human brain. We find symmetrical faces more attractive, symmetrical designs more pleasing, and symmetrical flowers more beautiful. This preference for symmetry may stem from the fact that symmetry in nature often indicates health and genetic fitness. When you look at a perfectly symmetrical flower, your brain registers it as correct, as an example of nature functioning as it should, and this recognition brings a subtle sense of order and rightness to your thoughts. The green leaves and stems that accompany flowers deserve their own recognition in this story of calm. Green is the color that occupies the center of the visible light spectrum, and it's the color that requires the least adjustment by the human eye. Looking at greenery, whether leaves or grass, allows your eye muscles to relax completely. This is why green is universally regarded as the most restful color. When flowers come with their natural greenery, they bring this visual rest along with their other gifts. Flowers also influence air quality in subtle but meaningful ways. Like all plants, they absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen, but some flowers also remove volatile organic compounds from the air. Gerbera daisies, for instance, release oxygen at night, unlike most plants, making them ideal bedroom companions. Cleaner, more oxygen-rich air supports better sleep by ensuring your brain receives optimal oxygen during the night, allowing for more efficient cellular repair and memory consolidation. The ritual of caring for flowers, checking their water, trimming their stems, can serve as a form of temporal punctuation in your day. These small acts of nurturing create moments of transition that help your brain shift between different states of consciousness. When you tend to your flowers in the evening, you're creating a ritual that signals to your body that the active day is ending and the restful evening is beginning. Rituals are powerful tools for sleep hygiene because they train your nervous system to respond to specific cues. Consider also the silence that flowers embody. In a world of constant noise, notifications, and demands for attention, flowers simply exist. They make no sound, require nothing of you, and offer themselves without expectation. This quality of silence, of peaceful presence, is deeply soothing to the overstimulated modern nervous system. Just having flowers in your peripheral vision as you go about your day provides a constant, gentle reminder that not everything requires your response, your action, your engagement. Some things simply are, and that is enough. The diversity of flowers also mirrors the diversity of calm states available to the human mind. A tight, perfect rosebud offers the calm of potential, of energy held in reserve. A fully open peony shows the calm of full expression, of nothing held back. A fading bloom demonstrates the calm of completion, of a cycle fulfilled. Each stage of a flower's life offers a different lesson in tranquility, a different permission for your own mind to settle. There's wisdom too in how flowers respond to their environment. They turn toward light, close their petals in darkness, and open again with dawn. This responsiveness to natural rhythms, this dance with the circadian cycle, serves as a model for healthy human functioning. When you observe flowers following their natural patterns, you're reminded of your own need to align with natural rhythms, to honor your own cycles of activity and rest. The texture of a flower garden, the combination of many different forms and colors, creates what artists call visual rhythm. Your eyes move from one flower to another, following paths of color and shape, and this movement is inherently calming because it's self-directed and unpressured. Unlike the forced attention of screens or urgent tasks, your attention in a garden or even viewing a bouquet is free to roam, to linger, to return. This freedom of attention is itself a form of rest. Flowers in art and imagery carry these same calming properties. Looking at a photograph or painting of flowers activates many of the same neural pathways as seeing real flowers. This is why floral imagery has been used throughout human history to create spaces of peace, in meditation chambers, healing spaces, and places of rest. Your brain responds to the representation of flowers almost as it does to the real thing, which is why you can derive calm from flower imagery even when fresh blooms aren't available. The cultural associations we have with flowers also deepen their calming effect. Across virtually all cultures, flowers are associated with positive events, celebrations, expressions of love, remembrance of cherished ones, and marking of important life transitions. These associations create a rich web of positive emotional connections that activate when you encounter flowers, even if you're not consciously aware of them. Your brain has learned, through countless experiences both personal and cultural, that flowers mean something good, and this learned response contributes to the immediate sense of well-being they provide. The simple abundance of flowers in nature also teaches a lesson in sufficiency. A single cherry tree may produce thousands of blossoms, knowing that only a fraction will become fruit. This natural generosity, this overflow of beauty beyond strict necessity, suggests a universe of abundance rather than scarcity. When you internalize this message, even unconsciously, it counters the anxiety of not enough that plagues so many modern minds. Flowers also demonstrate perfect balance between effort and ease. They grow and bloom according to their nature, without forcing, without struggle against what they are. A rose doesn't try to be a lily, a daisy doesn't strain to be a tulip. This acceptance of inherent nature, this effortless being what they are, models a kind of self-acceptance that quiets the internal voices of self-criticism and comparison. The cycles of a flower, from bud to bloom to seed, mirror the cycles of human experience in ways that can be deeply comforting. We too have periods of quiet growth, times of full flowering, and seasons of letting go. When you observe these cycles in flowers, you're reminded that all phases are natural, all are temporary, and each has its own form of beauty. This perspective can ease the anxiety that comes from wanting to hold on to peak moments or rush through difficult times. Even the soil that nourishes flowers contributes to their calming influence. Research into the soil bacterium Mycobacterium vaccae has shown that it stimulates serotonin production in the brain when humans come into contact with it. Serotonin is your primary mood-regulating neurotransmitter, the target of many antidepressant medications. When you handle flowers, particularly if you're gardening or arranging freshly cut stems, you may be exposed to beneficial soil bacteria that naturally boost your serotonin levels. The temperature of flowers, slightly cool to the touch, can also have a subtle calming effect. Cool temperatures signal to your body's thermoregulatory system that it's appropriate to lower your core temperature, which is necessary for sleep onset. This is why a cool room promotes better sleep. The coolness of flower petals against your fingertips or face sends similar signals, encouraging your body toward a state conducive to rest. As we near the end of our journey through the science of floral calm, consider one more aspect: the way flowers invite presence. You cannot really appreciate a flower while multitasking or planning tomorrow's obligations. To truly see a flower, to notice the graduation of color at its center, the way light passes through its petals, the subtle fragrance it releases, you must be here, now, fully present. And in that presence, you find rest. Let this understanding settle over you like petals falling gently on water. Your brain, that miraculous network of billions of neurons, recognizes flowers as symbols and sources of safety, beauty, natural rhythm, and the continuation of life. From your amygdala to your visual cortex, from your olfactory bulb to your prefrontal regions, every encounter with flowers whispers to your nervous system, relax, be at peace, all is well. As you drift towards sleep now, imagine yourself surrounded by your favorite flowers. Perhaps roses of the softest pink, their fragrance reducing cortisol in your bloodstream. Perhaps lavender, its compounds binding to GABA receptors, slowing your thoughts. Perhaps jasmine, guiding you toward deep, restorative sleep stages. Whatever flowers bring you joy, let them fill your mind's eye now. See their colors, those wavelengths of light that ask so little of your visual processing, that release gentle streams of dopamine through your neural pathways. Notice their shapes, those mathematical perfections that your brain recognizes as fundamentally harmonious. Feel their texture, that softness that activates your parasympathetic nervous system, telling every cell in your body that it's time to rest. You are safe here, in this garden of the mind, where flowers bloom eternal, where their calming influence flows through you like water through their stems, where every blossom is a promise that beauty exists, that nature provides, that rest is not only possible but natural. Let the flowers tend you now, as you have learned to tend them. Let them do their ancient work of soothing the human mind, quieting the racing thoughts, softening the sharp edges of anxiety. Let them guide you, as they have guided countless humans before you, toward the peaceful darkness where sleep blooms like a flower opening to the moon. Rest now, surrounded by petals, by fragrance, by the silent, generous presence of flowers. All is well. All is beauty. All is calm. And now, as you rest in this peaceful state, let us journey deeper still into the relationship between flowers and the calming of the human mind. There are layers upon layers of connection here, each one more subtle, more profound than the last. consider the way flowers influence the concept of time itself in your consciousness. When you watch a time-lapse video of a flower opening, you witness hours compressed into seconds. But in real life, flowers teach the opposite lesson. They slow time down. A bud opens so gradually that you cannot see the movement, yet each time you return to look, it has transformed. This imperceptible change invites you to adopt a different temporal perspective, one measured not in minutes and deadlines but in the gentle unfolding of natural processes. Your brain, when it adopts this slower rhythm, begins to produce more alpha waves, those brain waves associated with wakeful relaxation and the threshold of sleep. The patterns of veins and flower petals mirror the patterns of neurons in your brain with stunning similarity. Both are branching networks designed to distribute resources efficiently, whether nutrients in a petal or electrical signals in your cortex. When you trace these delicate lines with your eyes, you're looking at a reflection of your own neural architecture. This recognition, though unconscious, creates a sense of kinship, of belonging to the same natural order. Your nervous system recognizes itself in the flower, and in this recognition finds a deep, wordless comfort. Flowers also teach us about the intelligence of simplicity. Each flower has evolved to accomplish complex goals, attracting pollinators, reproducing, dispersing seeds, yet they do so with elegant simplicity. A flower doesn't overthink, it simply is what it needs to be. This model of efficient, purposeful existence without unnecessary complexity speaks to the part of your brain that yearns for simplicity, for relief from the overwhelming abundance of choices and stimuli in modern life. When you contemplate a flower, you're contemplating a masterclass in doing exactly enough, and nothing more. The weight of a flower in your hand is worth considering too. Most blooms are remarkably light, their mass disproportionate to their visual impact. This lightness is itself a metaphor that your mind absorbs. Heavy things demand effort, light things allow ease. When you hold a flower, you're reminded that beauty and significance don't require heaviness or burden. This understanding can help ease the mental weight you carry, the sense that everything important must be heavy, serious, difficult. There's a particular quality to the air in rooms filled with flowers, beyond just fragrance. Flowers engage in a form of communication through volatile organic compounds, chemical signals they release to interact with their environment. Some of these compounds have antimicrobial properties that actually purify the air around them. When you breathe air that has passed over flower petals, you're breathing air that has been subtly cleansed. Your respiratory system notices this purity at a level below conscious awareness, and your breathing naturally deepens and slows in response. The dewdrops that gather on flowers in early morning carry their own lessons in calm. These tiny spheres of water demonstrate surface tension, that molecular force that holds things together. Each drop is a perfect collaboration of countless water molecules, clinging to each other into the petal beneath. This image of things holding together, of coherence maintained through natural forces, can be deeply reassuring to a mind that often feels fragmented or scattered. Your thoughts, like water molecules, have their own natural tendency toward coherence, toward settling into calm patterns. Flowers bloom according to photoperiod, the length of day versus night. Some flowers, called long day plants, bloom when nights are short. Others, short day plants, bloom when darkness dominates. Still others are day neutral, blooming regardless of light duration. This diversity of response shows that there is no single correct way to respond to circumstances. Your own nervous system, like these varied plants, has its own optimal conditions for flowering, for being at its best. Recognizing this removes the pressure to force yourself into patterns that don't suit your nature. The phenomenon of nyctinasty, the opening and closing of flowers in response to light and darkness, demonstrates a kind of botanical breathing. The flowers inhale the day, opening their petals wide, then exhale into night, folding closed. Some flowers, like morning glories, open with dawn and close by afternoon. Others, like evening primrose and moonflowers, open only after sunset. This rhythmic opening and closing mirrors the healthy rhythm of engagement and rest that your own nervous system needs. Flowers remind you that closing, withdrawing, resting, is as natural and necessary as opening and engaging. Consider the relationship between flowers and light at a deeper level. Flowers don't just reflect light, they interact with it in complex ways. The pigments in petals, anthocyanins creating purples and blues, carotenoids producing yellows and oranges, don't simply color the flower. They protect its reproductive structures from UV radiation, they regulate temperature, they create patterns visible to pollinators but invisible to human eyes. This hidden complexity, this depth of purpose beneath simple beauty, suggests that what appears peaceful on the surface may be profoundly active underneath. Your own rest is like this, seemingly passive but actually engaged in crucial restoration and repair. The spiral patterns found in flowers like passion flowers and cosmos create a visual effect called phi, based on the golden ratio of 1.618. This ratio appears throughout nature and has been found to be inherently pleasing to the human eye. When you look at these spirals, your brain's pattern recognition systems engage smoothly, without effort or strain. This effortless processing is deeply restful. It's the visual equivalent of hearing a piece of music in perfect harmony. Everything fits, everything flows, and your mind can simply receive without working to decode or understand. Flowers have been found to generate weak electrical fields, the result of their metabolic processes. These fields are so subtle that humans cannot consciously detect them, yet some scientists believe we may respond to them at a cellular level. Every living thing, including you, generates bioelectrical energy. When you're near flowers, your bioelectric field may actually synchronize with theirs in subtle ways, much as your heartbeat can synchronize with another person's when you're in close contact. This electromagnetic harmony, though imperceptible, may contribute to the sense of peace flowers provide. The way flowers distribute their weight across their stems demonstrates perfect engineering. A heavy bloom like a sunflower or peony doesn't topple because its stem has developed the exact strength and flexibility needed to support it. This balance between strength and flexibility is something your own nervous system seeks. Too rigid, and you break under stress. Too flexible, and you collapse. Flowers show the middle way, the optimal balance, and observing this balance can help your own system calibrate toward it. Flowers also demonstrate the principle of emergence, complex beauty arising from simple rules. Each petal is a relatively simple structure, yet arranged together they create something far more beautiful than the sum of their parts. Your thoughts are like this too. Each individual thought may be simple, but together they create the complex tapestry of consciousness. When thoughts slow down and simplify, as they do when you're falling asleep, they don't disappear, They arrange themselves into different, dreamier patterns, like petals settling as a flower closes for the night. The concept of allelopathy, where plants release chemicals that affect nearby plants, extends to flowers as well. Some flowers release compounds that encourage beneficial bacteria in the soil or discourage competing plants. This chemical communication creates an invisible network of influence. Similarly, your presence in a room changes that room's emotional atmosphere in ways both subtle and profound. When you're calm, you radiate calm through micro-expressions, tone of voice, even pheromones. Flowers remind you that influence doesn't require force or noise. The most powerful effects are often the quietest. Think about the roots of flowers, unseen beneath the soil. While you admire the bloom, an equally complex structure below ground draws up water and minerals, anchors the plant against wind, and communicates with fungi and bacteria in the soil microbiome. This hidden foundation makes the visible beauty possible. Your own calm has roots too, in habits, relationships, beliefs about yourself and the world. The flower reminds you that surface beauty requires deep foundations, that what you see is supported by what you cannot see. Flowers attract pollinators through a combination of signals: color, scent, shape, and even texture. But they also offer nectar, a genuine reward for the pollinator's service. This is mutualism, a relationship where both parties benefit. The flower gets pollinated, the bee gets food. When you interact with flowers, there's a similar exchange. You provide appreciation, attention, care. They provide beauty, fragrance, calm. Both are enriched. This reminds your mind that the best relationships, whether with plants or people or yourself, are those where all parties gain something valuable. The phenomenon of heliotropism, where flowers track the sun across the sky, shows a kind of botanical attention. Sunflowers, when young, turn their faces to follow the sun from east to west during the day, then reorient to the east overnight in preparation for dawn. This devotion to light, this turning always toward what nourishes, is a model for your own attention. What you turn toward, you grow toward. Flowers turning to the sun suggests that you might turn your attention toward what calms you, toward what brings you peace, with the same natural, persistent devotion. Consider how flowers have evolved such that different species bloom in sequence throughout the growing season. In temperate regions, crocuses and snowdrops brave the late winter cold, followed by daffodils and tulips in spring, then roses and lilies in summer, finally chrysanthemums and asters in autumn. This succession ensures that pollinators have food sources from early spring through late fall. It also means that the world is never without flowers, that beauty and renewal are constant, just changing form. This continuity, this assurance that something beautiful is always emerging somewhere, can ease existential anxieties about endings and loss. The thickness of flower petals varies tremendously, from the tissue-thin petals of poppies to the substantial, almost succulent petals of magnolias. Thin petals are translucent, light passes through them, making them glow. Thick petals are opaque, creating depth and shadow. Both are beautiful in different ways. This variety reminds you that there are many ways to be, many forms that beauty and effectiveness can take. Your own being, in all its particular qualities, is as valid as any other form. Flowers produce seeds, sometimes thousands from a single plant, yet only a few will find the right conditions to germinate and grow. This seems wasteful by human standards, but it's nature's way of ensuring continuation. Not every seed must succeed for the species to thrive. This can relieve the pressure you may feel that every effort, every attempt, every day must be productive and successful. Nature builds in redundancy, in overabundance, knowing that success rates will be low. You can afford to have days that don't bloom, efforts that don't bear fruit. You're playing the long game, like the flowers. The colors of flowers have been shown to influence heart rate variability, a measure of the balance between your sympathetic and parasympathetic, calming, nervous systems. Higher heart rate variability is associated with better stress resilience and emotional regulation. Viewing blue and purple flowers increases heart rate variability, suggesting that these colors help balance your autonomic nervous system. Pink and coral tones have been found to generate feelings of nurturance and care. Even imagining these colors can begin to create these effects, as your brain's response to color is partly learned and can be activated by memory and imagination. Flowers exist in a state of vulnerability. They have no armor, no ability to flee from threats. Yet they persist, they thrive. They have done so for over 130 million years. This resilience without defensiveness, this thriving despite vulnerability, offers a powerful counter-narrative to the belief that safety requires constant vigilance and protection. Flowers suggest that openness, beauty, and vulnerability can coexist with survival and even flourishing. The water within a flower's cells creates turgor pressure, the force that keeps petals firm and stems upright. When water is scarce, this pressure drops and the flower wilts. But provide water again, and turgor returns, the flower revives. This is not permanent damage but temporary stress response. Your own energy works similarly. When depleted, you wilt, energy drops, mood sags, thinking becomes fuzzy. But rest and restoration, like water to a flower, can revive you. The wilting is not failure, it's a signal, an invitation to tend to your own needs. Some flowers, like night blooming cereus, bloom for a single night, their flowers opening at dusk and wilting by dawn. This extreme ephemerality makes each blooming a rare event, something to witness if you're lucky. The brevity doesn't diminish the beauty, if anything, it intensifies it. This teaches something about presence and appreciation. The most precious moments are often the most fleeting, and knowing they won't last makes them more, not less, valuable. Your time in any given state of consciousness, wakefulness, relaxation, sleep, dreams, is temporary. Embracing this transience rather than resisting it allows each state to be fully experienced. The concept of dormancy in perennial flowers offers another layer of wisdom. In winter, many flowering plants appear dead, their leaves gone, their stems brown and brittle. But beneath the soil, the roots live on, conserving energy, waiting for the right conditions to return. When spring comes, the plant doesn't start from scratch. It draws on stored resources and established root systems to surge back to life. You too have times of dormancy, periods when growth isn't visible, when you seem to be merely enduring. But like the dormant perennial, you're not losing ground. You're conserving, maintaining, preparing. And when conditions improve, you'll have a foundation to build on. Flowers demonstrate perfect timing through vernalization, the process by which exposure to cold temperatures triggers future blooming. Many spring bulbs must experience winter cold to bloom properly. Without the cold period, they won't flower. This shows that difficult periods can be necessary preparation for beautiful outcomes. The hard times aren't just obstacles to overcome, they're integral to the process of flourishing. Your own difficult experiences, the cold seasons of your life, may be creating the conditions necessary for future blooming. The symmetry and proportion of flowers can be analyzed mathematically, but flowers also display what mathematicians call organized complexity. While overall patterns follow clear rules, individual variations make each flower unique. No two roses are identical. Each tulip has slight differences in color distribution, petal shape, stem height. This combination of pattern and variation creates what the brain perceives as natural beauty, as opposed to the sterile perfection of artificial symmetry. Your own being is like this, following general human patterns while being absolutely unique in its particular expression. This uniqueness is not a flaw in the pattern, it is the pattern's natural completion. The relationship between flowers and fungi deserves deeper consideration. Many flowers form partnerships with mycorrhizal fungi, microscopic threads that extend the plant's root system and help it access nutrients and water. In exchange, the plant provides the fungus with sugars from photosynthesis. This underground network can connect multiple plants, allowing them to share resources and even send chemical signals to each other. You are similarly interconnected with others in ways both visible and invisible. The calm you cultivate doesn't exist in isolation, it ripples outward, affecting those around you through countless subtle channels of influence. Flowers have evolved alongside their pollinators for millions of years, each shaping the other's evolution. Bee-pollinated flowers often have landing platforms and colors in the blue-purple spectrum that bees see clearly. Hummingbird flowers are often red and tubular. Night-blooming flowers are white or pale, visible in darkness, and fragrant to attract moths. This coevolution shows how relationship shapes form, how two different beings can influence each other toward mutual benefit. Your relationships, with people, places, practices, shape you just as you shape them. Choosing relationships that support your calm is like a flower evolving to attract the pollinators that serve it best. The morning dew on flowers creates tiny prisms, splitting sunlight into rainbow spectrums invisible until you look closely. These micro-rainbows demonstrate that there are layers of beauty present that casual observation misses. The closer you look, the more you find. This is true of moments of rest and quiet too. What might seem like empty time or doing nothing actually contains rich texture and subtle beauty if you attend to it. The quiet breath, the relaxed muscle, the thought that drifts by without demanding attention, these have their own delicate beauty, their own spectrum of experience. Certain flowers, like the peace lily, actually improve overnight oxygen levels more than during the day, continuing photosynthesis in darkness through a specialized metabolic pathway. This nighttime oxygen production can improve air quality in bedrooms, supporting deeper sleep. But it also serves as a reminder that important work doesn't only happen in the light, in the active hours. Darkness and rest are not the absence of productivity, they're different kinds of productivity, focused on restoration rather than expenditure. The pH of soil affects flower color in dramatic ways. Hydrangeas, for instance, bloom blue in acidic soil and pink in alkaline soil, with the same genetic plant producing entirely different colors based on its environment. This teaches that expression is not only about inherent nature but also about context. You may find yourself naturally more calm in certain environments, with certain people, during certain times of day. This is an inconsistency. It's the natural variation of expression based on conditions. Seeking and creating conditions that support your calm is as sensible as adjusting soil pH for desired blooms. The movement of flowers in wind demonstrates flexible resilience. They bend, sometimes dramatically, but their flexibility allows them to absorb force without breaking. Rigid structures snap in high wind, flexible ones dance and survive. Your mind cultivates this same quality through practices of calm. When stress arises, a flexible mind bends with it, accommodates it, allows it to pass through without breaking. The flower in wind is not passive, it's actively responding, constantly making micro-adjustments. So too your calm is not passive acceptance but active, intelligent flexibility. Flowers close in rain not because water damages them but to protect their pollen from being washed away. This intelligent response to conditions, staying open when beneficial, closing when protective, is worth emulating. You need not be constantly open, constantly available, constantly engaged. There are times when closing, protecting, withdrawing is the intelligent response. Flowers teach that responsiveness to conditions is not weakness but wisdom. The final buds on a flowering stem often remain closed while earlier buds bloom. This sequential blooming extends the flowering period, ensuring that the plant has a longer window for successful pollination. It's a strategy of spreading opportunity over time rather than investing everything in a single moment. Your own efforts toward calm and well-being work best with this same strategy: consistent, gentle, repeated practices over time rather than intense, unsustainable efforts that burn out quickly. And so we deepen further into rest, surrounded still by flowers, by their wisdom, by their chemical gifts, by their silent modeling of natural rhythms and intelligent response. Let each fact about flowers become a petal of understanding, drifting down to settle on the surface of your mind, covering it gradually with a blanket of peace. The flowers ask nothing of you now. They simply offer what they are. And what they are is enough to guide you toward the rest you seek. Now we enter the deepest part of the garden, where the boundary between flower and self begins to dissolve, where the lessons of blooms become the texture of your own consciousness settling into sleep. Consider the concept of phyllotaxis, the arrangement of leaves and petals around a stem. This pattern follows precise mathematical rules that maximize sun exposure while minimizing shadow. Each leaf or petal is positioned at a specific angle from the last, creating spiral patterns that seem both random and perfectly ordered. Your thoughts, as you drift towards sleep, begin to arrange themselves in similar patterns, not the linear logic of waking consciousness, but the spiral logic of dreams, where each thought connects to the next at unexpected angles, creating patterns that feel both strange and completely natural. The cells in flower petals contain vacuoles, large sacs filled with pigmented fluid that creates their color. These vacuoles occupy up to 90% of the cell's volume. The cell is mostly colored emptiness, mostly space. This is true of atoms as well, mostly empty space with tiny particles and vast voids. And perhaps consciousness is like this too, vast spaciousness with occasional thoughts, feelings, sensations appearing in it. As you relax towards sleep, you're not losing consciousness but expanding into its spacious nature, where thoughts appear and dissolve like petals falling into water. There's a phenomenon in some flowers called thermogenesis, where they generate heat through metabolic processes. Skunk cabbage can melt through snow in early spring, maintaining its flower temperature at 70 degrees Fahrenheit even when air temperature is below freezing. This internal fire, this warmth generated from within regardless of external conditions, speaks to your own capacity to maintain inner calm and warmth even when your environment is cold or hostile. Your center, like the center of these flowers, can be a source of warmth independent of circumstances. The ultraviolet patterns on some flowers, invisible to human eyes but visible to bees, create what are called nectar guides, lines and patterns that direct pollinators to the flower's center. These hidden layers of meaning, these communications happening in spectra we cannot see, remind us that much of what matters is invisible. The calm you feel in the presence of flowers operates partly through visible beauty, yes, but also through invisible mechanisms, pheromones, ions in the air, subtle electromagnetic exchanges, and the mysterious way that beauty touches something deep in human consciousness that predates language. Flower buds protect themselves with sepals, modified leaves that enclose the developing flower. When the flower is ready to bloom, the sepals peel back, no longer needed. They don't disappear, they remain at the flower's base, a reminder of the protection that was necessary during development. You too have protective mechanisms, defenses, walls, cautions developed during vulnerable times. As you become safer, more established, these protections can relax, peel back, allow your inner beauty to show. But they remain part of you, part of your structure, honored for the role they played. Some flowers exhibit hygroscopy, the property of changing shape in response to moisture. Certain seed pods spiral open when dry and closed when wet, helping to disperse seeds in optimal conditions. This intelligent responsiveness to environment, this built-in sensitivity that leads to appropriate action, is something to cultivate. Your own sensitivity to your internal environment, noticing when you need rest, when you need engagement, when you need solitude or company, is not weakness but sophisticated self-regulation. The process of guttation in flowers, where excess water is exuded as droplets at petal tips, usually happens at night when evaporation is low but the plant is still drawing up water through its roots. These aren't dewdrops but the plant's own water, released to maintain proper internal pressure. This nighttime release, this letting go of excess, parallels what your mind does during sleep. The day's accumulated tensions, the excess mental stimulation, the overload of information, all of this is processed and released during sleep, maintaining your psychological equilibrium. Flowers demonstrate threshold effects in their blooming response. A certain amount of light, temperature, or time must accumulate before blooming is triggered. Below the threshold, nothing visible happens. but the flower is counting, accumulating, preparing. Then, suddenly, the threshold is crossed and blooming begins. Your own healing and calming work this way too. For a long time, practices may seem to produce no visible change. But you're accumulating capacity, approaching a threshold. And then, sometimes suddenly, something shifts, and you find yourself in a new state, calmer than before, and you realize all that quiet practice was not in vain. The way flowers reflect light, particularly in petals with complex surface structures, creates iridescence in some species. This rainbow shimmer comes from microscopic ridges and layers that split light into its component wavelengths. Beauty at this level arises from complexity at scales we cannot see without magnification. Similarly, the peace you feel may arise from countless small factors, neurotransmitter levels, memories, physical comfort, recent experiences, expectations, all interacting in complex ways to create an overall state that feels simple but emerges from deep complexity. Flowers demonstrate what ecologists call R strategy and K strategy reproduction. R strategists produce many small flowers and seeds, betting on quantity. K strategists produce fewer, larger flowers, investing more in each. Neither strategy is better. Both work in different contexts. This reflects approaches to calm as well. Sometimes you might practice many small moments of mindfulness throughout the day. Other times, you might invest in longer, deeper periods of meditation or rest. Both approaches work. Both have their place. The opening of flowers often happens in specific light conditions, some at specific light intensities, others at specific times of day regulated by circadian clocks. This precision shows that timing matters. There is a right time for opening and a right time for closing, and these times are not arbitrary but responsive to real conditions. Your own rhythms of activity and rest are like this, not arbitrary, but responsive to your biological reality, your circadian system, your individual needs. Honoring these rhythms rather than overriding them supports natural calm. Consider annual flowers, which complete their entire life cycle: germination, growth, flowering, seeding, death, in a single growing season. They invest everything in one spectacular blooming, then die, trusting their seeds to carry on. This complete commitment, this all-in approach to their brief existence, shows a kind of courage. They don't hold back, don't save energy for a tomorrow that won't come for them. They bloom fully now. There's a lesson here about presence, about bringing full attention to this moment, this breath, this experience, because this is what you actually have. The relationship between flower color and pollinator vision has led to fascinating specializations. Bees can see ultraviolet light, so bee-pollinated flowers often have UV patterns. Birds have better red vision than most insects, so bird-pollinated flowers are often red. This teaches that there's no universal standard of beauty or visibility. What stands out to one observer is invisible to another. Your own moments of peace, your small victories toward calm, may not be visible to others, but that doesn't make them less real. You're the observer that matters for your own internal landscape. Some flowers practice in antiostole, where the stamens and pistil curve to one side, either left or right. Different individual plants curve in different directions, and this variation promotes cross-pollination by making it more likely that bees visiting multiple flowers will transfer pollen between them. Even at the level of individual flowers, diversity serves the whole. Your own unique way of approaching calm, the specific practices and conditions that work for you, contributes to collective human understanding of well-being. There is no single right way. Flowers in bud form demonstrate perfect containment. All that will unfold is already present, just compressed, folded, waiting. The bloom doesn't add anything that wasn't in the bud, it just reveals it. You too contain everything you need for your own blooming, for your own calm and flourishing. The practices, the rest, the gentle attention, these don't install something foreign. They reveal what's already present, already part of your nature. The scent of flowers becomes stronger in evening for night-blooming species, weaker during day. Day-blooming flowers often intensify fragrance at times when their specific pollinators are most active. This teaches efficiency, expending resources when they'll be most effective. Your own energy for maintaining calm can be allocated wisely too, invested most heavily in practices and environments that give the greatest return, rather than spreading yourself too thin across everything. Flower petals sometimes display what's called deliquescence, where they actively dissolve and liquefy after pollination, returning their nutrients to the plant rather than wasting them. This efficient recycling, this transformation of one form into nourishment for the next stage, reflects how your own experiences can be metabolized. Even difficult days, restless nights, moments of anxiety, these can be processed, transformed, their energy reclaimed and repurposed rather than simply endured and discarded. The strength of a flower stem comes not from hardness but from vascular bundles arranged in patterns that distribute force. The stem is hollow in many species, maximizing strength while minimizing weight. This teaches that strength doesn't require solidity, that resilience can coexist with flexibility and even emptiness. Your own calm mind is like this, strong not because it's packed with defenses but because it's well structured, appropriately hollow, flexible enough to bend without breaking. Certain flowers can reopen after closing if conditions change, if a cold night warms suddenly, or if light returns after a dark period. This isn't automatic but responsive, showing that patterns can be interrupted, that returns to previous states are possible. If you've been calm and then become anxious, you haven't lost calm forever. Like the flower, you can return to the open state when conditions support it. States are not permanent, they're responsive to circumstance. The relationship between flowers and time perception is profound. Flowers that last only a day condition you to daily appreciation. Those that last weeks allow for longer contemplation. Those that bloom yearly for just days create annual anticipation. Each teaches a different relationship with time, with continuity and change, with patience and presence. Your own calm can be appreciated at different timescales, the immediate relief of a deep breath, the cumulative benefit of weeks of practice, the long arc of a lifetime learning to live with more ease. And now, deep in this garden of understanding, notice how heavy your eyelids have become, how your breathing has slowed to match the gentle rhythm of petals opening and closing, like the tide of consciousness ebbing towards sleep. The flowers have shared their secrets, and the secrets are these. Beauty needs no justification. Cycles are natural. Vulnerability can coexist with strength. Each moment contains what it needs. Rest is not absence but presence of a different kind. Let these truths settle into your body like roots into soil, anchoring you, connecting you to something larger, something that has bloomed for millions of years and will bloom for millions more. You are part of this blooming. Your rest is part of nature's rhythm. Your calm is a flower opening in the garden of consciousness. In the depths of night, the garden transforms. This is where we go now, into the darkest, quietest part of our journey, where even the flowers seem to sleep, where the relationship between blooms and rest becomes most intimate. There are flowers that exist primarily in darkness, night-blooming species that have evolved to thrive when the sun has set. The dragon fruit cactus produces enormous white flowers that open only at night, wilting with the first touch of dawn. These flowers have evolved to be pollinated by bats and moths, creatures of darkness. They remind us that not all growth, not all beauty, happens in daylight. Some of your most important restoration happens in sleep, in darkness, in apparent stillness. The night flowers honor this truth. The cells of flower petals undergo circadian rhythms even when removed from the plant. Individual petals kept in constant darkness will still open and close according to their internal clocks for days. This endogenous rhythm, this biological beat that persists even without external cues, reflects your own circadian system. Deep in your brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus keeps time, pulsing with roughly 24-hour rhythms even if you were kept in a cave without sunlight. Like the flower petal cells, your body knows when it's time to sleep, time to wake, time to rest, time to engage. Trusting these rhythms, flowing with them rather than against them, creates the foundation for lasting calm. Flowers in darkness don't stop being beautiful, they simply express their beauty to different senses. The night-blooming jasmine becomes almost overwhelmingly fragrant after sunset, its white flowers glowing in moonlight, its scent carrying far on the night air. In darkness, it shifts from visual to olfactory beauty. You too can shift modalities as you enter sleep, from the visual thinking of daytime to the kinesthetic awareness of your body settling into bed, from language to images, from images to wordless sensation. The dew that forms on flowers at night is not rain but moisture from the air condensing on cool petals. The flower itself creates the conditions for this condensation by radiating heat into the clear night sky, cooling below the dew point. The flower makes itself a landing place for moisture, draws water from the air itself. Your own practices of calm are like this, creating conditions where peace condenses naturally from the atmosphere of your life, not forcing it but allowing it to form. Some flowers close at night to conserve heat, keeping their reproductive organs several degrees warmer than the surrounding air. This retention of warmth in cold darkness is protective and necessary. You too need to conserve energy, to protect what's tender and vital, to maintain your inner warmth even when the world feels cold. Closing is not failure, it's intelligent preservation of resources. The silence of flowers at night is profound. No photosynthesis occurs without sunlight, so the constant chemical conversation with the sun pauses. But other processes continue: cellular repair, growth at the cellular level, the distribution of nutrients stored during the day. This reminds you that sleep is not cessation but a different kind of activity. Your brain, while you sleep, consolidates memories, clears metabolic waste through the lymphatic system, processes emotions, and solves problems. Sleep is profoundly active, just active in ways invisible from the outside. Night-flying moths navigate using the moon as a fixed point of reference. Night-blooming flowers have evolved to be visible and attractive to these navigators. The flowers provide something that helps moths orient themselves in the vast darkness, a point of reference, a destination, a reward. Your practices of calm can serve this same function, fixed points of reference in confusing times, destinations to return to when you feel lost, rewards for the difficult navigation of being human. The phosphorescence sometimes seen in decaying flowers is caused by bioluminescent bacteria that colonize the dying tissue. This eerie glow in darkness shows that even in decay, there is light, there is activity, there is strange beauty. Your own difficult periods, your personal declines and losses, may also contain unexpected sources of light, lessons that only become visible in the darkness of difficulty. Flowers that bloom at night often have evolved to be more fragrant because scent travels further in the still, cool night air than in the turbulent warmth of day. The physics of scent diffusion favor nighttime. Similarly, some truths about yourself, some insights into your own nature, may become clearer in the stillness of rest and reflection than in the busy noise of active days. Quiet reveals what noise obscures. The movement of flowers in complete darkness, and they do still move, still perform slow adjustments even when no human eye can see them, demonstrates that life continues beyond observation. The philosophical question if a tree falls in the forest has a clear answer with flowers. Yes, they are still real, still beautiful, still themselves, even when no one is watching. Your worth, your essential being, doesn't depend on being perceived, on performing, on proving. You are still yourself in the privacy of sleep, in moments no one else will ever witness. Many flowers use the temperature drop at night as a signal to close. The cooling air triggers cellular changes that reduce turgor pressure on one side of the petal base, causing it to fold inward. This elegant mechanism shows that the flower is in constant conversation with its environment, constantly sensing and responding. Your own body is doing this too, sensing temperature, light levels, sound, comfort, hundreds of variables, and adjusting their state of arousal or relaxation in response. Trusting these automatic systems, rather than overriding them with caffeine or forced wakefulness, allows your natural rhythms to function as they evolved to. The structure of flower petals creates tiny spaces that trap air, providing insulation. This trapped air keeps the flower center slightly warmer than the surrounding air, protecting sensitive reproductive structures from frost damage. You can create similar pockets of protection in your life, spaces and practices that insulate you from the harsher elements of existence, that preserve your tender center so it can continue to function, to hope, to love. Some flowers exhibit sleep movements where leaves fold together at night, a phenomenon called nyctinasty that we touched on earlier. But consider this more deeply. The leaves aren't merely closing, they're actively folding, drawing together in what looks uncannily like an embrace. Plants holding themselves through the darkness. This self-comfort, this ability to soothe yourself through your own actions, is a skill worth developing. You can be your own comfort in dark times, folding your awareness inward, holding yourself gently through difficulty. The moon's phases affect some flowering plants, with certain species more likely to bloom during full moons. This lunar influence, subtle but real, reminds us that we are subject to forces larger than ourselves, gravitational, electromagnetic, cosmic rhythms that our ancestors tracked carefully and that still pulse through our biology even if we no longer consciously attend to them. You are not separate from the cosmos, you are part of it, subject to its rhythms, connected to its vast cycles. In complete darkness, flowers still grow toward where the sun was last seen, maintaining directional memory. This demonstrates faith in patterns, trust that the sun will return, that what has been lost will come again. When you're in dark periods of life, when calm seems impossible, you can maintain direction toward what has brought you peace before, trusting that light returns, that dawn is part of the pattern even when you're in darkest night. The chemistry of flower scent changes temperature-dependent reactions, so the same flower will smell different at night than during the day. The cooler night air slows the evaporation of certain volatile compounds while allowing others to dominate. This teaches that context changes everything, that your experience of yourself will vary with conditions, and that this variation is not inconsistency but natural response to circumstance. Flowers that remain open at night often have white or pale-colored petals that reflect even faint light. This is adaptive, being visible in darkness. But there's poetry in it too. The willingness to be visible even in difficult conditions, to show up even when circumstances aren't ideal, to offer what beauty you can even in darkness. This is courage, this is resilience. The root systems of flowers often grow more at night than during day, when the plant's energy is focused above ground. Below the surface, invisible growth continues in darkness. Your own foundational growth, the deep changes in how you understand yourself, how you relate to experience, how you meet difficulty, often happens below the surface of awareness, in quiet times, in sleep, in moments when you're not trying to grow but simply being. Flowers conserve water at night by closing their stomata, the tiny pores that allow gas exchange. This water conservation is essential for survival, especially in dry conditions. Knowing when to remain open and when to close, when to exchange freely with the environment and when to conserve resources, this is wisdom. You don't need to be constantly open, constantly giving, constantly receptive. There are times when closing, conserving, protecting is exactly right. The way flowers orient themselves before nightfall, the position they settle into for the darkness, affects how they'll greet the dawn. Flowers facing east will catch the first light, those facing west will warm last. The preparations you make for sleep, your evening routine, your final thoughts, the state you cultivate as you settle into bed, affect how you'll emerge from sleep. You can set yourself up for a good awakening by how you approach sleep. Some flowers produce heat through metabolic processes specifically at night, keeping their temperature above freezing even when air temperature drops below zero. This thermogenesis requires energy but prevents ice crystals from forming in delicate tissues. Sometimes maintaining your calm, especially in difficult circumstances, requires energy expenditure. It's not always effortless, but it's energy well spent, protecting what's precious from damage. The absence of light at night causes flowers to shift from light-based growth patterns to touch-based and gravity-based responses. They can't photosynthesize, but they can still sense which way is up, can still feel contact with supports or nearby plants, can still respond to wind pressure. When your usual sources of guidance aren't available, when you can't see the way forward clearly, you can still sense your immediate reality, still feel what's supporting you, still respond to the forces acting on you. You have more than one way to navigate. Night predators that might damage flowers are often deterred by thorns and chemical defenses, many of which are intensified at night. The rose's thorns don't soften in darkness, they remain sharp. Your boundaries, your protections, your no, these can remain firm even as other parts of you soften towards sleep. You can be both soft and protected, relaxed and boundaried, at ease and appropriately defended. The stillness of air at night means less mechanical stress on flowers. The constant buffeting of daytime winds pauses, and flowers can rest in relative stillness. Your own need for stillness, for periods protected from the constant demands and stimulations of waking life, is equally legitimate. You need time when nothing is asked of you, when you can simply exist without responding to requests or stimuli. Many flowers prepare for the next day's blooming during the night, synthesizing pigments, adjusting petal position, preparing nectar. Tomorrow's beauty is being built in today's darkness. The rest you take tonight is preparing tomorrow's capacity. Sleep isn't time stolen from productivity, it's the foundation on which tomorrow's effectiveness is built. And so we rest here, in the nocturnal garden, surrounded by sleeping flowers and night bloomers, by pale petals catching starlight and dark leaves nearly invisible in shadow. The garden continues in darkness, life persists beyond the reach of light, and you too are held safely in this darkness, this necessary rest, this healing absence of demand. We have come to the threshold, that liminal space between waking and sleeping, where the garden becomes something more, where flowers dissolve into symbols and reform as feelings, where the boundary between you and the blooms grows gossamer thin. There is a flower called the moonflower, Ipomea alba, whose buds spiral tightly closed during the day, but at dusk they unwind in a rapid spiral, opening fully in just minutes. If you watch this unfurling in real time, it seems almost animal-like in its deliberateness, its urgency to greet the night. This unwinding, this letting go of the tight spiral of the day, is what you're doing now. All the winding thoughts, the coiled tensions, the spiraled worries, they're unfurling, releasing, letting the soft night in. Dreams are like night-blooming flowers. They emerge only when certain conditions are met, when consciousness dims and the rational mind releases its grip. And like night-blooming flowers, dreams serve purposes not immediately obvious. They attract pollinators of a different kind, insights, integrations, the processing of emotions too complex or too threatening for waking mind to handle directly. Your dreams are working for you, even when they seem strange or frightening, just as night-blooming flowers serve their pollinators even in darkness. The phenomenon of floral scent in dreams is particularly interesting. Many people report smelling flowers in dreams despite the fact that olfactory processing is generally reduced during sleep. These phantom fragrances may be memories being consolidated, emotional associations being processed, or perhaps simply the brain amusing itself with synthesis. But real or imagined, the scent of dream flowers can provide comfort, can signal safety to the dreaming mind. Flowers in dreams often represent the self in bloom, the expression of inner potential, or sometimes the fleeting nature of beauty and life. But they can also simply be flowers, the mind playing with images it finds beautiful, creating private gardens for the dreamer's pleasure. There's no rule that says dreams must be symbolic. Sometimes a flower is just a flower, and the mind just wants to look at beautiful things while it does its necessary reorganization work. The colors that dominate in late sleep dreams are often the pastels and soft hues of flowers rather than the primary colors of waking life. This may reflect the brain's reduced activation in visual processing areas, but it creates a particular aesthetic, soft, gentle, dreamlike in the most literal sense. The world of deep sleep dreams is often a pastel world, a flower-colored world, washed in the hues that least disturb rest. Consider how flowers in time-lapse photography appear to dance, to reach and sway in gesture. In the condensed time of dreams, you might experience similar movements, similar flowerings of thought and feeling occurring in seconds that would take hours in waking life. Time is fluid in both domains, in the slow unfolding of blooms and in the elastic duration of dreams where a moment can contain years or years can pass in seconds. The language of flowers, long used to send coded messages, a red rose for love, white lilies for purity, yellow carnations for disappointment, parallels the symbolic language of dreams. Both require interpretation, both pack meaning into image, both communicate slant, through metaphor and association rather than direct statement. Learning to read both languages, or simply to appreciate them without needing to decode every symbol, is part of developing a richer inner life. Some flowers, like calendula, were used in medieval dream pillows, small sachets of dried flowers placed under pillows to influence dreams. Whether through genuine aromatic effects on the sleeping brain or through the power of intention and belief, these practices recognized something true, that the environment of sleep matters, that what surrounds you can influence the quality of rest and dreams. The flowers you imagine now, the garden you're building in your mind, can serve a similar function, creating an environment conducive to peaceful sleep. Flowers close up details and open to overview as you pull back from them visually. A flower examined closely is all texture and structure, pollen grains and cellular walls. From farther away, it becomes a unified burst of color and shape. Dreams often work this way too, shifting between close examination of details and vast, comprehensive overviews, teaching the mind to move fluidly between scales of attention. The idea of a meadow full of flowers, swaying gently in warm breeze, has been used as a sleep visualization aid for generations. This image works because it combines gentle movement, the swaying, pleasant sensation, warmth, visual softness, the blurred colors of many flowers, and the implication of endless abundance, a whole meadow. Let yourself be in such a meadow now, not trying to see every flower clearly but taking in the overall effect, the general sway, the wash of color, the drowsy hum of bees, the heavy warmth of summer sun making your eyelids impossibly heavy. Flowers at the edges of consciousness, glimpsed from a moving car, half remembered from childhood, familiar but unidentifiable, have a particular quality. They're not quite there, not quite gone, hovering in peripheral awareness. This is the state you're entering now, where things are present but not distinct, where awareness continues but without sharp focus, where you're still here but also already sliding into there. The botanical structure called a calyx, the collection of sepals that protect the flower bud and sometimes remains visible beneath the open bloom, serves as both protection and foundation. It's what the flower emerges from and what supports it. Your own body is like this calyx, the foundation and protection for your consciousness, the ground from which awareness blooms. As you sleep, Consciousness withdraws into this protective structure, safe, supported, held. Flowers wilt not from a sudden failure but from a gradual loss of turgor, a slow softening, a gentle giving way. This is not violent but almost tender, the flower releasing its form by degrees. Your own passage into sleep is like this when allowed to be natural, not a sudden shut-off but a gradual softening, a gentle giving way of focus and control, a tender dissolution of the boundaries that define waking self. The way petals overlap in a rosebud, each one tucked beneath the next in perfect spiral, this is efficiency and beauty in one, each petal both protected by and protecting others. Your own being is layered like this, thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, all overlapping, all part of the pattern, all tucked together in ways that make sense even if you can't see the whole spiral from where you are. Flowers sometimes appear in snow, early crocuses and snowdrops pushing through frozen ground, their delicate blooms seeming impossibly fragile yet surviving conditions that would kill many hardier-looking plants. This teaches that what appears delicate may be deeply strong, that beauty and toughness are not opposites, that you too may be stronger than you appear, even in your softest, most vulnerable states. The transparency of petals when backlit, the way light passes through them and makes them glow from within, this is beauty of a particular kind, the kind that requires the right angle of viewing, the right quality of light. You too have qualities that only show under certain conditions, aspects of yourself that need the right circumstances to become visible. This doesn't make them less real, just more subtle. Flowers and fog take on a different quality, shapes become suggestions, colors mute, edges soften. The world becomes impression rather than definition. This is the consciousness of early sleep, when the world's sharp edges blur, when everything becomes suggestion and impression, when you can no longer quite tell where the garden ends and your thoughts begin. The way flowers close around themselves, petals drawing inward in darkness or cold, demonstrates a kind of self-holding, a turning of attention inward for protection and conservation. You are doing this now, attention withdrawing from the outside world, awareness curling inward, holding yourself gently as you descend into sleep. Let the flowers continue their work without you now. They know how to bloom and close, how to drink in sun and dew, how to make seeds and scatter them. They've been doing this for 130 million years without your supervision, and they'll continue. You can rest. You can stop managing, stop overseeing, stop trying to keep everything going. Like the flowers, you can trust the processes that don't require your conscious attention, the beating of your heart, the breath moving in and out, the brain processing and filing and clearing, the body repairing and restoring. Your garden will be here in the morning. The flowers will open again with the sun. And so will you, after this rest, after this descent into the gentle darkness where flowers sleep and dreams bloom. All the facts have been shared, all the petals examined, all the fragrances inhaled. What remains is simply to rest, to let the garden grow in darkness, to trust the wisdom of flowers that have survived every extinction event, every climate change, every challenge nature has offered, simply by knowing when to open and when to close, when to bloom and when to seed, when to reach for light and when to rest in dark. You know these things too. Your body knows. The flower of consciousness knows when it's time to fold its petals closed. And it's time. Sleep now. Like a flower closing at dusk. Like a meadow settling into night. Like a petal falling on still water. like a seed in dark earth. Sleep. Yet the garden continues, even as you sleep, even as consciousness dims to its faintest ember. There are deeper layers still, older stories, facts rooted in time so vast that human lives are like single petals falling. Flowers are ancient beyond imagining. The first flowering plants emerged approximately 130 million years ago during the Cretaceous period, when dinosaurs still walked the earth. Before flowers, the world was dominated by ferns and conifers, a greener but less colorful place. The emergence of flowers changed everything. They co-evolved with insects, created new ecological niches, altered the atmosphere itself through their collective photosynthesis. When you look at a flower, you're looking at a form of life that outlasted the dinosaurs, that survived the asteroid impact that ended the Cretaceous, that persisted through ice ages and continental drift. This kind of endurance, quiet and beautiful, suggests that what seems delicate may be profoundly resilient. The oldest flower ever found in the fossil record, a specimen called Montsecchia vidalii, lived 130 million years ago in freshwater lakes in what is now Spain. It was small, aquatic, not showy, but it was a flower, with all the essential structures that define flowering plants. From such humble beginnings came roses and orchids, sunflowers and magnolias, the entire spectacular diversity of blooms. This teaches that great beauty can emerge from simple origins, that complexity unfolds from simplicity given enough time, that you too are an unfolding process that started simply and continues to elaborate. Flowers preserve themselves in amber, in fossilized form, tiny blooms suspended in golden resin for millions of years, their delicate structures preserved in impossible detail. A 100-million-year-old flower in amber looks as fresh as if it had been picked yesterday, frozen mid-bloom and eternal present. This suspension in time, this preservation of a moment, reflects what sleep does for memory. Certain experiences are preserved, held in neural amber, protected from the erosion of time, available to be revisited in dreams or waking recall. The diversity of flowering plants is staggering, over 300,000 known species, and new ones are discovered every year. This abundance of forms, this endless variation on the theme of flower, shows nature's inexhaustible creativity. No two species are identical, yet all share the basic architecture of flower. Similarly, human consciousness takes countless forms across cultures and individuals, yet shares basic architecture, awareness, sensation, thought, feeling. You are both unique and universal, like a flower species found nowhere else yet unmistakably a flower. Flowers evolved specific relationships with specific pollinators over millions of years. The Madagascar orchid, Angraecum sesquipedale, has a nectar spur over a foot long. When Darwin first saw this flower, he predicted that there must exist a moth with a tongue long enough to reach the nectar at the bottom. People thought he was mad. But decades after his death, such a moth was discovered, a hawk moth with a tongue nearly a foot long, perfectly matched to the orchid. This shows that even in seemingly impossible situations, there is a match, a partner, a solution. What seems like an impossible problem may simply be waiting for the right circumstance, the right match, to arrive. Some flowers have existed virtually unchanged for millions of years. Magnolias, for instance, are among the most ancient flowering plants, and modern magnolias closely resemble fossils from 95 million years ago. This suggests that some forms are so well adapted, so perfectly suited to their function, that they need little change even across unimaginable spans of time. Perhaps some aspects of yourself, too, are already well formed, already suited to their purpose, not needing the constant improvement and optimization that modern culture demands. The molecular structure of cellulose, which gives flower petals their structure, is one of the most common organic compounds on Earth. It's made of glucose molecules linked in long chains, the same glucose that fuels your cells, arranged differently. This shared chemistry, you and the flower both built from rearrangements of the same basic building blocks, emphasizes the kinship between all living things. You are not separate from nature, observing flowers from outside. You are nature, observing itself through human eyes. Flowers respond to gravity through specialized cells called statocytes, which contain dense starch grains called statoliths. These grains settle to the bottom of cells, indicating which direction is down. This allows flowers to grow upward even if the seed germinates sideways or upside down. You too have mechanisms for orienting yourself, for finding your way back to upright even when circumstances knock you off balance. These mechanisms work even when you're not consciously thinking about them, just as statoliths settle without the plant's awareness. The color changes in some flowers as they age, hydrangeas fading from vibrant to antique hues, roses deepening from bright to dark, tell a story of chemical change. As cells age, anthocyanins and other pigments oxidize, creating different colors. This aging is not decay but transformation, each stage having its own beauty. Your own aging, the changes time brings to body and mind, is also transformation rather than simple loss. Each stage of life has its particular colors, its unique beauty. Flowers can sense touch through mechanosensitive channels in their cell membranes. When touched, these channels open, allowing ions to flow and triggering electrical signals that travel through the plant. Some flowers, like the touch-me-not, respond dramatically to touch by folding up immediately. Others respond more subtly. This sensitivity to contact, this responsiveness to the environment, is fundamental to life. You are similarly sensitive, similarly responsive, and this is not weakness but sophisticated awareness. The genome of flowering plants contains ancient genes shared with all plants, plus new genes that arose specifically for flower production. These flower-specific genes control petal development, color production, scent synthesis, all the features that make a flower recognizable as such. Similarly, your brain contains ancient structures shared with reptiles, structures shared with all mammals, and newer structures specific to primates and especially humans. You are layered in time, ancient and modern simultaneously, like the flower's genome. Flowers produce energy through photosynthesis at different rates depending on their structure. Flowers with thin, translucent petals like poppies photosynthesize through their petals as well as their leaves. This dual production, energy from leaves and from blooms, shows efficiency and redundancy. You too can draw energy from multiple sources: sleep, food, social connection, purpose, beauty. Relying on multiple sources creates resilience. The symbiotic relationships between flowers and fungi extend beyond simple nutrient exchange. Recent research shows that mycorrhizal networks allow plants to send chemical signals to each other, warning of pest attacks or environmental stress. A flower under attack can signal other flowers to increase their chemical defenses before the threat reaches them. This underground communication network, sometimes called the Wood Wide Web, shows that individual plants are part of a larger community, sharing information for collective survival. You too are part of invisible networks, family, community, culture, and what happens to you ripples outward, just as you're affected by ripples from others. Flowers have influenced human evolution. The ability to distinguish red from green, to see in trichromatic color, evolved in primates partly because it helped in finding ripe fruit in edible flowers. Your color vision, the way you see the world, was shaped by millions of years of ancestors needing to identify flowers and fruits. The beauty you perceive in a red rose is not arbitrary, it's rooted in evolutionary history, in the survival value of being able to see red against green. The essential oils that give flowers their fragrance are secondary metabolites, chemicals that aren't essential for basic life functions but provide advantages like attracting pollinators or repelling herbivores. These extras, these luxuries beyond bare survival, are what make flowers what they are. Similarly, much of what makes human life rich, art, music, philosophy, love, goes beyond bare survival. These aren't frivolous, they're what make life worth living. Rest and beauty aren't indulgences to be earned, they're essential to full living. Flowers growing in nutrient-poor soil often produce more vibrant colors and stronger scents than those in rich soil. This seems counterintuitive. Shouldn't abundance produce more beauty? But the flower in poor soil invests more resources into attraction because it needs to ensure pollination despite its limitations. This shows that constraints can drive creativity, that limitation can produce intensity. Your own constraints, your challenges, may be producing depth and richness you wouldn't develop in easier circumstances. The arrangement of flower parts in whorls, sepals, then petals, then stamens, then carpels, follows a precise sequence controlled by homeotic genes. Mutations in these genes can cause one type of structure to develop in place of another, like petals where stamens should be. This genetic program, playing out in every developing flower bud, shows that complexity emerges from coded instructions unfolding in sequence. Your own development, physical and psychological, follows similar patterns, genetic programs interacting with environment to produce the unique individual you are. Flowers can alter their scent production based on whether they've been pollinated. Once successfully pollinated, some flowers reduce scent production, conserving energy now that their reproductive purpose is accomplished. This responsiveness to success, this ability to shift strategies based on changing circumstances, is sophisticated resource management. You can learn to do this too, to recognize when a goal has been met and shift effort elsewhere, rather than continuing to pour energy into something already complete. The temperature regulation in some large flowers creates microclimates that attract pollinators. Skunk cabbage, as mentioned before, can maintain its bloom at 72 degrees Fahrenheit even when surrounded by snow. This warmth attracts early insects seeking refuge from cold. Creating conditions that attract what you need, offering warmth in a cold world, is a form of generosity that also serves your own purposes. What you offer comes back to you through the relationships it enables. Flowers in the same family often share chemical signatures. Related species produce similar alkaloids, flavonoids, or volatile compounds. This chemical kinship allows taxonomists to identify relationships between species. Similarly, families of humans often share not just genetic traits but behavioral patterns, beliefs, ways of being in the world. You carry your lineage in visible and invisible ways, and understanding this can create compassion for yourself. You didn't choose all that you inherited, yet you can choose what to carry forward and what to transform. The water-conducting tissues in flower stems, called xylem, operate through negative pressure. They pull water upward against gravity through molecular cohesion. Water molecules stick to each other into the xylem walls, creating a continuous column of water from roots to petals. This seems impossible, pulling a liquid column dozens of feet high without breaking, yet it works because of the molecular properties of water. Similarly, what seems impossible in your own life may be achievable through properties and connections you can't directly see but that nonetheless operate reliably. Flowers that bloom only once every several years, like some bamboo species that flower once every 50 to 120 years, show patience beyond human comprehension. These plants grow for decades, sometimes centuries, storing energy, waiting for conditions to be exactly right, then blooming all at once in spectacular synchronized displays before dying. This long preparation for brief glory suggests that not all accomplishments need to be quick, that some things are worth decades of quiet preparation for moments of spectacular emergence. The fossil record shows that flowers evolved during a period of high atmospheric CO2 and warm global temperatures. They thrived in conditions that would challenge many modern plant species. This adaptability, this ability to emerge and diversify in changing conditions, is part of why flowers became the dominant form of plant life. When conditions around you change, when the climate of your life shifts, you too have capacity to adapt, to find new ways of flourishing in new circumstances. Flowers produce pigments like anthocyanins partly as a sunscreen, protecting delicate petal tissues from UV radiation damage. Beauty and protection serve each other. The same chemicals that create stunning purple and red hues also prevent cellular damage. Your own protective mechanisms, boundaries, self-care practices, saying no, need not be ugly or harsh. Protection can be beautiful, boundaries can be graceful, self-care can be aesthetically pleasing. The phenomenon of flower constancy in bees, where an individual bee visits only one species of flower during a foraging trip, shows that even with many options available, focus can be valuable. The bee becomes the expert at efficiently harvesting from its chosen flower type. When you focus your energy, your attention, your practice on particular approaches to calm and well-being, you become more efficient, more expert, better able to harvest the benefits. And so we rest in this ancient garden, surrounded by forms of life that have persisted for epochs, that have witnessed the rise and fall of species, the movement of continents, the cycling of ice ages. The flowers you see today are inheritors of an unbroken chain of blooming stretching back 130 million years. You too are an inheritor of genes, of culture, of language, of accumulated human wisdom about how to live. You don't face the challenges of existence alone or unprepared. You carry millions of years of solutions encoded in your biology, thousands of years of cultural knowledge available to draw upon. Let this long perspective settle into your awareness like sediment settling in still water. What troubles you today is real, but it's also temporary against the vast scale of flower time. What you're becoming is still unfolding, still elaborating, still adding petals to the bloom of your life. Here is a garden beyond the one you can see, a dimension of flower existence that operates below perception, in the realm of the molecular, the chemical, the quantum. Here we descend now, into the invisible architecture that makes the visible bloom possible. At the molecular level, flowers are in constant motion. Their atoms vibrate, their molecules rotate and flex, their electrons orbit in probability clouds. What appears still to your eye is actually seething with movement at scales too small to see. Similarly, your mind in sleep appears still from outside, but internally it's alive with motion, neurons firing, neurotransmitters flowing, memories being processed, dreams being constructed from the raw material of experience. The color of a flower exists only in the interaction between light, petal, and eye. The petal itself isn't red, it simply absorbs most wavelengths and reflects wavelengths around 700 nanometers, which your brain interprets as red. Color is relationship, not property. Similarly, your experience of calm isn't a property you possess but a relationship between your nervous system and your environment, between your thoughts and your awareness of them, between this moment and the next. Flowers exchange gases with the atmosphere through their stomata at rates invisible to perception. Each stoma opens and closes thousands of times per day, regulating the flow of carbon dioxide in and oxygen out. This breathing at the cellular level mirrors your own breath, which continues now without your conscious control, each inhale bringing oxygen to your bloodstream, each exhale releasing waste. Like the flower stomata, your breathing knows what to do without supervision. The electrical potential across flower cell membranes creates tiny batteries. Each cell maintains a voltage difference between inside and outside. This electrical nature of life extends to your own cells. Your neurons are particularly specialized batteries, storing and releasing electrical potential to send signals. The thought of a flower in your mind right now is electricity, ions flowing across membranes, creating the experience of imagination. Mind and flower are both electrical phenomena, both playing with charge and current. Water within flower cells is not ordinary water. It's structured by proximity to proteins and membranes, its properties altered by confinement in tiny spaces. This biological water behaves differently than pure water, flowing faster through narrow channels than physics would predict, facilitating the rapid responses flowers make to changing conditions. The water in your own cells is similarly specialized, similarly active. You are mostly water, but not simple water. You're water organized into life, water that thinks and feels and dreams. Flowers engage in allelopathy at the chemical level, releasing compounds into the soil that inhibit competing plants or encourage beneficial microbes. These chemical conversations happen constantly, invisibly, shaping which plants thrive and which struggle. You too release chemical signals, pheromones, scent molecules from skin and breath, that communicate your emotional state to others at levels below conscious awareness. Anxiety has a smell, as does calm, and those around you respond to these chemical cues without knowing they're doing so. The chlorophyll molecules in flower leaves and stems are nearly identical in structure to the heme molecules in your blood. The main difference is that chlorophyll has a magnesium atom at its center while heme has iron. These related molecules evolved from common ancestors billions of years ago. Chlorophyll captures light energy, heme carries oxygen. Both are essential to life. Both are variations on a theme. This molecular kinship, this shared ancestry at the level of proteins, emphasizes that all life is family, all emerged from the same chemical beginnings. Flowers produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the universal energy currency of life. The same molecule that powers your muscles, your neurons, your every cellular process also powers the flower's growth and blooming. When you admire a flower, you're looking at ATP in action, at the same fundamental energy transfer that's occurring in your own cells right now. Energy is energy, whether it opens a petal or fires a neuron or contracts a muscle fiber. The quantum effects in photosynthesis, where light energy is converted to chemical energy with nearly 100% efficiency, involve quantum coherence, the same particles existing in multiple states simultaneously until measured. This quantum weirdness happens in flowers, in the chloroplasts of every green cell, at room temperature, in the wet, chaotic environment of living tissue. The world is stranger, more magical, more interconnected at the quantum level than everyday experience suggests. Perhaps consciousness too involves quantum effects. Perhaps your awareness itself is more mysterious and less mechanical than it seems. Flowers respond to touch through calcium signaling. Touch triggers calcium ions to flood into cells, creating electrical signals that propagate through the plant. Calcium is a universal signaling molecule, used by flowers and by you for communication within and between cells. When you learn something new, calcium floods into your neurons, strengthening synapses. When your heart beats, calcium triggers muscle contraction. You and the flower speak the same molecular language. The scent molecules from flowers are geometric shapes, some star-shaped, some spherical, some long and twisted. These shapes fit into receptor proteins in your nose like keys into locks. The shape of the molecule determines the smell you experience. A tiny change in molecular geometry, moving a single atom, can change rose scent to something completely different. This teaches that small changes can have large effects, that the specific details matter, that subtle differences in how you arrange your day, your thoughts, your practices can produce dramatically different experiences. Flowers accumulate certain minerals from soil. Some species concentrate selenium, others accumulate nickel or gold in their tissues. These hyperaccumulator plants can be used to clean contaminated soil, drawing heavy metals from earth into their tissues. You too accumulate what you're exposed to, ideas, habits, beliefs drawn from your environment. Unlike the flower, you can choose to some extent what you accumulate, what you draw in and what you filter out. The practices you choose, the media you consume, the company you keep, all of these deposit traces in your tissues, literal and metaphorical. The process of senescence, the programmed aging and death of flowers, is controlled by ethylene gas, a simple molecule made of 2 carbon atoms and 4 hydrogen atoms. As flowers age, they produce more ethylene, which triggers further aging in a feedback loop. Eventually, the cells deliberately dismantle themselves, recycling their components. This programmed death isn't failure, it's completion, the flower making way for seed, for the next generation. Understanding that endings are natural, that some things should be allowed to complete and disperse, can ease the grasping that prevents rest. Flowers can sense the direction of light through cryptochromes, specialized proteins that respond to blue light. These proteins undergo chemical changes when struck by photons, changes that trigger cellular responses. You have similar light-sensing proteins in your eyes, but also in your skin, even in your brain. Your body knows when it's day and when it's night through these molecular light sensors, and this knowledge regulates your sleep-wake cycles whether you pay attention to it or not. The sugars flowers produce through photosynthesis, glucose, fructose, sucrose, are the same sugars you metabolize for energy. The sweetness of nectar and the sweetness of honey, of fruit, of the simple pleasure of being alive, all based on the same molecules, the same chemical structure that represents stored sunlight, packaged energy, potential made manifest. Flowers exist in a network of viral and bacterial DNA, with genetic material being exchanged between species through viruses, through pollen, through soil microbes. This horizontal gene transfer means that the genome of a flower isn't fixed but fluid, accepting innovations from other organisms. You too exist in a network of information transfer, ideas flowing between minds through language, culture, media. What you think of as your thoughts include elements from countless other minds, recombined in unique ways but not created from nothing. The resonance frequencies of flower petals, the frequencies at which they naturally vibrate, can be measured with lasers. Each flower has its characteristic vibration signature. Everything solid vibrates at the molecular level, including your bones, your tissues, your cells. You too have resonance frequencies, though they're complex and overlapping. The idea that you might resonate in harmony or dissonance with your environment isn't merely metaphor, it's physics. Flowers produce reactive oxygen species during photosynthesis, highly reactive molecules that can damage cells. But flowers also produce antioxidants to quench these reactive species, maintaining balance. Your own metabolism produces similar reactive molecules, and you too have antioxidant systems to manage them. Balance, not elimination, is the goal. Some stress, some challenge, some reactive molecules are part of healthy function. Perfect calm isn't the absence of activation but the balance between activation and recovery. The gibberellins, hormones that trigger flower blooming, work by degrading proteins that inhibit growth. The bloom happens not because something is added but because something inhibitory is removed. Sometimes your own flourishing requires not the addition of something new but the removal of something that's been holding you back, a belief, a habit, a relationship that no longer serves. At the quantum level, the electrons in flower molecules exist in superposition until they interact with light, at which point they collapse into definite states. This wave-particle duality, this existing as potential until measured, mirrors how your own potential exists as a cloud of possibilities that collapse into specific actuals through the choices you make, the attention you give, the actions you take. And now, dissolved into this molecular, quantum garden, let yourself dissolve too. You are not separate from these processes. You are these processes, elaborated into complexity, organized into consciousness, but made of the same atoms, the same forces, the same fundamental interactions that make flowers bloom. There is no boundary, finally, between garden and gardener, between flower and observer, between the calm you seek and the consciousness seeking it. All is vibration, frequency, resonance. All is chemistry becoming experience. All is energy transforming, organizing, expressing. And now, expression releases into rest. Organization relaxes into flow. Energy settles into stillness. Like a flower closing, molecule by molecule, each petal fold a trillion atomic rearrangements, each cell a universe of chemical cascades. all happening in perfect unconscious choreography. You too can release conscious control, can trust the molecular machinery, can let yourself be carried by processes that predate consciousness and will continue after awareness fades. Sleep is molecular. Sleep is chemical. Sleep is the deepest flowering, blooming into darkness, opening into rest.